record. All right, so welcome to the weekly accountability call. It's Monday, October the 3rd, and we are going to be talking tonight about living an intentional life. So, during this portion of the call, there's a couple of different things that we kind of filter throughout the weeks of the month. So sometimes our call is about like very nutrition science specific sort of things. We answer questions about intermittent fasting and what times should I eat and what combinations of foods and proteins and carbs and all kinds of stuff like that. And other times it's purely mindset. So we talk about like why we eat the way we eat and how did we get to the place where we got to and how do we fix that into a place that's better. And then other times it's very practical, like tips and tricks and that sort of thing. So tonight is like a little bit of a hybrid between mindset and tips and tricks and intentionality, because tonight's theme is intentional living. And so, oftentimes I take the content portion of our call straight from conversations I'm having behind the scenes or in nightly accountability with boot campers. So, if I feel like people are really struggling with their protein intake, we hop on and we talk about protein intake. Tonight, I'm talking about intentional living because at the end of every month, I go through and I touch base with everybody who I really haven't seen in the boot camp in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And I keep hearing the same. And I always hesitate to call them excuses because I think excuses has a very negative connotation to it. And I don't mean for this to sound negative. They're reasons that you feel are very valid for how come you have not been showing up for yourself, or showing up in accountability. And the thing is, it's life, right? Like I had a conversation with one of the boot campers today who was talking about, she's got a disabled sister and she's really just been struggling mentally with what's going on with her sister. And I totally get it. Like that is a heavy, heavy mental load, but are we going to let whatever heavy mental load is going on impact our health? I mean, I feel like we can talk about the tips and tricks for intentional living, but before we even can talk about that, that's where the mindset stuff comes in. And I feel like you can kind of flip totally into mindset and forget the tips and tricks, or people just give me the easy button. Danielle, tell me how to do this and I will do it. But you really do have to have a shift in mindset before the tips and tricks really even matter to you. Because one of my, I feel like I need to, trademark a little book of sayings or something. Because I say it all the time, but if it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter to you. I talk to people all the time that signed up because they had a moment in a dressing room where nothing fit. And then they sign up and they're like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then that moment passes and they stop caring. To be really flat out honest, they stop caring. It doesn't matter to them anymore if they don't like the way they feel. And I can't make it matter. That has to be something that comes from deep within you, that this matters to you. And it matters to everyone for very different reasons. For some people, their reasons are energy level, and I want to be able to keep up with my kids. And they have this deep seated why of why their health and wellness matter to them. Other people, and neither one is better than the other, just so you know, whatever motivates you, I am here for it. Whatever gives you the kick in the pants that you need to do the things you need to do, sign me up, right? Some people, it's they have a class reunion coming up and they really want to be able to fit into this specific dress. And that's the thing that makes the things matter, right? But if it doesn't matter to you, I promise you, you can't make it matter, right? Or I can't make it matter. You have to make it matter. And so you really have to kind of start there in this process of figuring out and really sitting down quietly with yourself and saying, why does this even matter? Why did I sign up? Who cares, right? Because if you can't figure that out, this is only going to last as long as that first burst of novelty allows for it to, right? Because here's the reality. Things get hard. Your kid gets sick, work gets stressful, somebody in your family dies. I mean, things happen. This is real life. And there is never a perfect time to start this. And we talk about that all the time. You just kind of have to jump in with both feet and figure it out as you go along. But I think adopting the attitude that things are going to happen and it is inevitable, and you have to make that decision of, is this the new part of who I am? Is this a part of who I want to be? And really kind of sink into who that woman is, or man, if you happen to be a man watching this. I don't think most men in the group watch the videos, but who is it that you really want to be? What type of person is that? And, over and over and over, I talk to people about, the word intentional. And I don't know if that's the Lord given me the word intentional, or if it's just the buzzword of the last 2 years or what, but I hear over and over and over, Danielle, I just want to live an intentional life. I want to go through my day with purpose and direction. And I want that to also lead to healthy behaviors. And so if you can figure out, like I said, kind of coming full circle, you can figure out why that matters to you. All the other stuff is really, it's literally just the logistics of figuring it out, right? And we are going to talk about some very logistical things tonight, but I wanted to preface any logistical speaking with, you must care about what you're doing. And most of the time that does not come, how do I want to say this? It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like, you have to be intentional about the time you take to figure out what your intention is. It's like that loop, right? But I would encourage you to sit down. It doesn't have to take long, but you do have to sit down and really ask yourself some honest questions. We've done calls before in the past about being truthful with yourself, right? Because I feel like it's very easy for us to deceive ourselves and to think that the things that are going on in our life, oh, they're just short term. Oh, if I could, I think one of my favorite memes is it's about like it's about being an adult, and it says something to the effect of being an adult is literally saying things will slow down after this week until you die. And I feel like that is the most accurate depiction of adult life I've ever heard in my life, because I can't tell you how many times a week I find myself saying, well, just if I can make it to Monday, right? If I can make it to next Monday, things are going to smooth out. But guess what happens? That calendar gets full. Things happen constantly in our lives, and we have to build a lifestyle. If Amy was on this call, I know she'd be nodding right now, because she and I talk all the time about sustainable lifestyle. My goal, for better or for worse, is to put myself out of business, because I've taught you how to make health and wellness a sustainable lifestyle, that we work on habits and whatever along the way, habits and accountability and all of that along the way, so that by an undetermined amount of time, you get into the habit that this is just who you are, that this is just who Jessie is. I know that when Jessie goes out to eat, she picks the healthier things on the menu, that sometimes, yes, she does have a treat, but that ice cream isn't a part of her daily intake, that's just a part of who she is. I know that a part of who she is a woman who takes care of her body by exercising every day. I know that a part of who, one of my other boot campers, Meg, that I talked to today, a part of who Meg is, she doesn't drink soda. And so we talked about that a little bit with the, I know I've shared this story. I used to be a smoker a long time ago now. I was a smoker. Matt hated it. I really should not have been smoking. It's a disgusting habit, right? But I was a smoker. And so, oh, yay, hey, there's your face. And when I quit smoking, I had none of this mindset certification. I had no health coach training. I had no nothing. But I guess just in general, I had this sense to know that I had to create a new identity around who I wanted to be. And so I would drive past the gas station that I would buy cigarettes at, and I would feel the habitual urge to just go buy cigarettes. And I would talk to myself constantly. And we talk about self-talk, and we talk about, the internal dialogue and all of that. But I would remind myself, why would you want cigarettes? You don't smoke. Like, non-smokers don't buy cigarettes. And so the same principle applies to our health and wellness journey. If you're trying to get rid of a bad habit of drinking sodas, decide that you are not a woman who drinks sodas. So why would you stop by McDonald's and get a dollar large soda? You don't drink sodas. You kind of you internal dialogue around this new self that you are creating. Why would I go back for seconds? I'm not hungry. So really reminding yourself of, why would I do that? That's not a part of who I am. And that really sets up the foundation for all of the rest of it. Because if you know that this is the type of woman that you want to be, the type of woman who exercises daily, who drinks more water than anything else, who chooses veggies over junky carbs, that it makes a lot of your decision making very easy, because one of the most interesting mindset neuroscience kind of things that I found the most fascinating in all of my training is that you can really rewire those pathways in your brain, and by new habit formation you can change things that you've always done. And I just think that's incredibly fascinating. And I absolutely love that aspect of health and wellness and what we do. So figuring out that you've begun, whether that's today or a week ago or 6 months ago or 8 years ago for me, you've begun this new lifestyle. You have to figure out, what does this new person do? How does she live an intentional life? Because that's a really fun buzzword, but that has consequences sometimes, because women that live intentional lifestyles don't wander around in the pantry at 9:15 at night, right? They have snacks. And this was something that I shared with, it's another one of those, like, I'm going to write it down and cross stitch it somewhere. Like, there's nothing wrong with snacks. There's something wrong with snacking. We don't sit around snacking. You can have a snack, but having a snack insinuates there's an intention behind it. I have been snacking sounds like you have no idea what you just ate. And it shifts it into this mindlessness that is really, I believe, one of the biggest downfalls of people's health and wellness in general, is the mindlessness that they kind of exist in. And so, first off, in order, we'll kind of flip into tips and tricks here. You got to have a plan. And so I don't know that I could make it any easier if I came to your house and I cooked dinner for you, right? But I've given you a plan, and really all you have to do is implement it. You can print it off. I can show you here. I was redoing a recipe today and I literally printed it off, and I'll slide it right in the binder. You can make a binder. I was telling Jesse earlier, I have one of those things that, like, it's like a claw punch thing where you can put a spiral into packets of paper. Like, you can buy one of those at Office Max. You can take it to Kinko's if you don't want to do that. Really very, very simple. You don't have to do that. You can just save it on your phone, but you need to have access to your plan at all times. And I don't have my books up here. They're downstairs. In the meal plan packet, there's a page that I like to call my fridge sheet. And that's because I print it out and I put it on my fridge, which, great names that I make up for things, but my fridge sheet, I print it off, I put it on my fridge, and it literally has saved my behind from scrambling around trying to figure out what the whim of the day is. Because what happens is, again, I start the week and I've got this really good plan. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And then we get to Wednesday at lunch and I'm like, what do I want? What do I want? What do I feel like eating? How many times have you said that to yourself? Man, I don't know if I feel like eating that. Well, if it was a prescription, I don't feel like taking my thyroid meds today. Well, guess what happens if I don't take my thyroid meds? It's not a good deal, right? So I don't rely on my feelings for that. So I would encourage you to work on stopping relying on your feelings for what you're choosing to eat. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't feel like eating chicken tonight, I'd rather have fish. Well, then you just swap out recipes. Like, that's not a problem. But if it's like, and this is the litmus test that I give my daughter all the time, because part of my desire with my health and wellness journey and business and all of that is to change the legacy of my children, because I know that I got to be the way that I was by a set of choices that were also in pattern by my parents. And so I want to make sure that I'm leaving Eden better than, and that doesn't mean that they did something wrong. It just means that they did the best they could with what they had, and I have more. So I want to give her more. So one of the things I always ask her, because I'll say, hey, she's like, I want a snack. And I'm like, okay, what about some carrots? I don't know. I don't feel like carrots. I'm like, okay, what about an apple? I don't know. I don't really feel like an apple. How about cookies? I'm like, then you don't want a snack, homegirl. Like, you don't want a snack, you want cookies. And that's a totally different conversation. You're not hungry, because when you're hungry, you'll eat the things that nourish your body. You're acting often out of emotion or out of boredom or something like that. And we've had whole calls on the different types of hunger and emotional eating. So I would encourage you to go back to the YouTube channel and, peruse some of the older calls that are on there. But asking yourself those same kind of questions and giving yourself that meal plan at a glance takes a lot of that decision making out, because you aren't relying on whims and feelings anymore. You're just going according to the plan. Kind of the same thing goes with our workouts. I've had several conversations this past week with several boot campers who are really struggling to get their workouts in. And the thing that one of them is a nurse. And I asked her, I said, well, in your nursing practice, if you have given your patient a directive and they tell you they're really struggling with fitting it in, what advice do you give them? Like, I imagine as a nurse, you have a set of advice that you give client or patients that are struggling in that way. And she's like, I know where you're going with this, Danielle. I'm like, okay, well, just answer the question, right? She's like, all right, well, I tell them to put an alarm on their phone. I tell them to write it in their calendar. I tell them to have their spouse or significant other or somebody else remind them, or I have them write it really big on like a whiteboard in their kitchen or something. And I'm like, okay, so is that something you could do for this? Because if it matters to you, it matters to you, right? You know that you feel better when you work out. You know that it's going to move you closer to your goal. You know that it's good. You know all of these things. Then make sure you're using your own advice. So kind of going back into the intentional thing, one of the things that I find very helpful, especially starting out for people that have not been working out, now they're trying to figure out where to build it in and what to do, is to literally put it in their calendar. So if you use a paper calendar, great. If you use your phone calendar, great. Find a time, just like if your doctor called you and says, hey, Danielle, we need to meet to go over your lab results. You know what I'm doing? I'm like, okay, so what do you have available? What do I have available? Let's match this up. Let's look at it. And I put it in my calendar. And guess what? I'm at my doctor's appointment. Your workout, no different, right? So take a look at your calendar. Where can you figure out a time? And sometimes, here's the piece that nobody ever wants to hear, right? Sometimes that means you have to wake up earlier. And I know that that's hard, but I promise you, you can get used to it, and you can help yourself along the way. I'll talk about that in just a minute too. But put it on your calendar. And maybe not everybody is like me, but if you are like me, and I'll show you, I'll get a little visual here. In your notes section, if you have an Apple phone, you have a notes section, and there's this little button at the bottom here that looks like a bullet point, and it's really you can like check things off like a little list. And I love to check things off. You know what I like to do? I like to put things on it I've already done, and then I check it off, and it makes me feel so good. It's a serotonin release. Our brains are wired that way. It feels really good to check something off of our list. And so I would encourage you, maybe this is something I've been doing lately because I'm feeling a little floundering. It says how to be intentional tomorrow. And I go through, you can't really see it. I wish you could see it better, but I go through and I write the things that I need to do. So it says, fold and put away all laundry, breakfast at Vanessa's house at 8:30, DMV for my car, email my bod renewals, match Jeep for inspect, like work out, lift more. And for some people, just writing workout works great. But what I love to see even more, write what workout you're going to do. 21-day fix arm day, 21-day fix Pilates day, lift more chest and back. That feels even better than workout. For me, I feel like, and maybe it's just because I've been doing it for as long as I have, but that has lost its luster. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'll take a walk. That counts. Like, no, I want to know that I'm doing what I've set out to do, and the intentionalness. I feel like if we had a drinking game here, we'd drink every time I said intentional. but I want to know that I'm doing what I set out to do. Another way that works really well, kind of flipping back into the nutrition aspect of things, is write out what you're going to eat the next day. And if you're not working off of a master meal plan kind of thing where you have a week at a glance, one of the things that I find really helpful is to go through, and if you have, oh my, why is all my stuff downstairs? Why do I never have the things that I need like right here in my office? Um, in the packets, let me see if it's no, that's not okay. In the box that you signed up with, you likely got it says To Be Mindset Nutrition Tracker. And it's literally just a little journal. And you can go in there and kind of pre-write in pencil what you plan on eating the next day. And what I love to do is and this is something I do the night before. I love to go in and look at my calendar while I look at that. And because I swear people do that all the time. They're like, okay, I'm going to have eggs and toast and fruit for breakfast. And I'm going to have a Thai chicken salad with a bowl of soup for lunch. And then I'm going to have, they come up with all these great things. And then you look at their calendar and they've got a 7:15 meeting at the kids' school. They've got, like all of this stuff. They know they're going to have to be at the DMV at noon. They know that we've got ball practice at 6:30. And I'm like, when were you going to do all this stuff that you planned on doing? You weren't making it practical for your life. And so make sure that when you are looking at what's coming up next for the next day, you're attentive to the fact that you have a real life and a schedule. Like, don't shoot yourself in the foot before you even get off the ground kind of thing. So that's one of the things. And I feel like there are 2 times of day that work really well for most people to build in some intentionality, to really set themselves up for success: the night before and the morning of. The rest of the day is really kind of implementation of what you've done for yourself the night before and the morning of. Because I feel like most people, if they're not being intentional the night before and they're not being intentional the day of, it's just kind of a crapshoot about what happens during the day. I feel like for me anyway, I'm like running around trying to figure out, where am I supposed to be? Who needs snack for what? How are we going to get here and there? And where are my kids going to go? Instead, I feel like the mental weight of it seems like it takes a really long time, but I promise you, I don't do more than 5 minutes at night of prep work for the next day. One of the things that I do, and these are again kind of like, I don't know what you call them, like bullets here that I'm shooting out, but I have a gallon jug of water. So my goal is always to drink a gallon of water every day. I know we talk a lot about water and what you can do to get in all your ounces. You can fill up lots of bottles. You can do whatever you want. But one of the things that I like to do is that I have a gallon of water. And so I fill that up the night before and I put it, if I want cold water, I put it in the fridge, if I, whatever. And then I pour from that jug. And that is my measuring utensil for the entire day. I know that if I get ready for bed and that gallon is empty, I've done my job for the day. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to go, I wonder how many ounces I've drank right now. How many of those water bottles have I had? I just know I fill up the gallon, I drink the gallon, or I haven't drank the gallon. It's a yes, it's pass fail, right? So that's one of the things that I find really, and again, how long does it take to fill up a gallon of water? Right? Like, just turn it on and you go do something, you come back and you turn it off. I always look over my next day's schedule and I look at what meal wise I need to do. And now I will say sometimes, and I want to always be transparent and truthful. Sometimes that can get a little time consuming. And by time consuming, I mean, it takes more than 5 minutes, because I'll look at the next day and I'll go, oh shoot, we've got, so we've got this, and this. And I'm like, okay, I know the kids need to have snack for volleyball and I'm not going to have time to pack it. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where you're giving yourself a little bit of lead time on what to expect for the next day. I have done several videos for people who struggle with time management on this whiteboard system that I've used for a really long time. And I don't use it all the time, again, being totally transparent here. I mostly use it when I feel like very, very overwhelmed and I just know that our life is pure chaos. But it's the exact same thing as this little phone list thing that I showed you, except I map out, I call it time blocking, and I map out exactly what I'm going to be doing hour to hour, minute to minute kind of thing, where I'm like, okay, I need to wake up at 5, energize 5:10, Bible study from 5:15 to 6, workout 6 to 6:30, shower 6:30 to 6:45. And I will say that does take a little bit more time, but man alive, that makes things go so much smoother, especially in those super, super busy seasons. The last little tip and trick I have for intentionalness, specifically with your nutrition, is to, when you get home, and this kind of falls into meal prepping a little bit. So you've got your plan, right? You've grocery shopped, you've done the things. And, if you are blessed enough to live in a place where you can order your groceries online, and you don't, what is wrong with you? Like, go order your groceries online and go to the Kroger and pick them up. I have never missed something more living on this beautiful island than I have that, because there is nothing like going on to Kroger on a Sunday, Kroger's website on a Sunday night, and typing in everything I need and building that cart and driving in the back of a Kroger, having them put it in my trunk and driving home. I save money, I save time, I save all kinds of headache and heartache. So if you do that, that's like a super big time saver. But even if you don't, you've done all the things, right? So most people, when they get home, they just put all their groceries away, right? Well, I don't. First thing I do is I have I got it from Pampered Chef, but I'm sure you can get all kinds of like platter style things. And I make a veggie tray for the week. I just throw a bunch of raw carrots. I chop up some cucumber. I chop up some bell pepper. I chop up some celery. I have tomatoes in there, and I throw that in the fridge. So I don't like to spend money on the big veggie trays. I know some people, that's their convenience fee, right? They're like, whatever, I don't have time for that. I'll just buy the veggie tray. I love having raw vegetables at hand all the time, because one of my other big things is, if it's there and it's in your face, you're 1,000 times more likely to eat it than if it's tucked away in a produce drawer. So make it the first thing you see when you open up the fridge. The other thing that I do all the time is I chop whatever meat I know that I need for the week. So if I need to cube up chicken, I cube up chicken. If I know I need steak strips for fajitas, I cut the steak into strips for fajitas, and I put them in containers, and either I put them in the freezer or the fridge, depending on how long it's going to take me to do it. So don't get tripped up with, like, you have to do all the things all the time. My big intentional living trademarky thing is, what can I do today that will make tomorrow better? And if you can do like even a fraction of that, you win, right? Like, you win the game. It does not take this superhuman effort that people feel like it needs to take to do just a little bit of that. And all of a sudden you realize, like, you start living with intention just because of the habits that you've put into place. So that's my little content spiel for the night. I'm going to stop the recording real quick.